I've got a couple of things to talk about, but
There it is.
I was gonna throw that away.
Remember, we're on the record, by the way.
Who's on the record?
We are.
What, right now? Is this it? Have we started?
It's been recorded.
Okay. Right. Well, proper podcast then, Tom.
You have more experience than I.
Hi.
Hi.
We're here to do a podcast that we've never done before. Have we? We've not done a podcast before.
We haven't, no.
No, but what's this podcast about, Tom? Tell everyone what it's about.
We are here to discuss the amusing and often horrific side of business and leadership and the experiences along the way.
Because Halloween's coming up, and this is probably going to come out on Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
We could tell some horror stories, right?
Oh, I've got some this year alone.
Yeah. Have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had some experiences this year.
Woo. Well, the other really cool thing is because it's horror, we're in this kind of red,
blood red,
encrypted. What do I mean? Clothed, blood red.
Oh, clothed.
Clothed.
To be clothed. Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful place.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Which podcast studio is this? Just in case anyone wants to come here. Big Belly Studios. That's it. We're here talking about this. So, where should we get started? We're talking about horror stories from our tales and experience in serving software to people over all of the years.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking
And dealing with the individuals.
Yeah.
And that entails.
Yeah. Have you got anything to start with? I know you have. I know you've got a lot in your mind.
But I have to kind of shuffle around the details so that I don't share too much.
And we should set the scene, right? So people should be listening to this on Halloween with that kind of a little bit creepy. Maybe it's a little bit dark. Maybe there's a fox howling.
Fox?
Well, I was going to say wolf. But
what noise does a fox make?
Oh, they make that screeching noise that you can't really reproduce. A baby's being strangled. That's what
that's
they
right.
kind of sound like.
Yeah.
Sorry to babies.
Like a cat going for a mangler.
Yeah. Yeah. There's that in the distance, and they can hear twigs cracking. And you're going to start with a story.
Yeah. So recently I had an engagement where the company was struggling, and it was founded by two individuals. When I joined,
Who can't be named,
and I'm trying to redact enough information so no one can be identified.
You do realise you've got to take this off your LinkedIn as well after
It's
this.
not on there.
Okay, well,
That has never even encroached on my LinkedIn. They had been struggling for a year to get off the ground.
Yeah.
And when I joined, things were not good.
Right.
The culture was pretty toxic, and that's horrific enough to go with.
When you say the culture's toxic, though, do you mean? How did you know that? I mean, did you know that before you got there, or did you?
I had been informed by one of the founders that the culture was not the best and could have been better.
On the way in?
On the way in. So I'd been given a lot of information on the way in. By the time I joined, the relations between the two founders was not in the best condition.
Right.
And it only went downhill from there.
Were they talking to each other?
No, that's the thing.
So they weren't even talking?
Yeah, the relationship had got so bad that one of the founders stopped talking to the other one.
So they were saying, Tom, could you tell whatever this person
exactly
is, this?
Yeah.
And you were sat in the middle?
Yeah, sat in the middle, trying to fix the problems, trying to produce the product, dealing with a lot of uphill problems and challenges. And then eventually court proceedings happened between the founders. Yeah.
And you had to serve the papers between them?
No, I didn't. No.
Oh.
I wasn't involved in that part. And I don't think technically I should have even known the legal proceedings were happening.
Okay. We can't name these people for legal reasons now. No.
And eventually, things just ended up deteriorating.
Okay.
I left because the culture was that bad and I was getting put under a lot of pressure. And I think since then, one of the founders has left.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I don't know the state of the company now because obviously I'm not privy to that. But yeah, that was an experience for 3 months, having to deal with that kind of engagement.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, it was horrible.
How did you cope?
I didn't.
Oh.
That's why I left.
Okay. Right.
Because the situation was so horrific that I ultimately had to choose myself over going through any more of it.
Right. And what did that, I mean, so there might be people listening to this because they've thought, well, do you know what? It's Halloween. I've had a pretty bad year.
Yeah.
Because it's not been a great year.
not been great 3 years if you ask so many people.
If you ask a lot of people in software, I mean, I see on LinkedIn people calling out, going, help, because I haven't got a job and I need one.
I've also got fractional peers who've been out of work for up to 8 to 10 months.
Fractionals as well. You can't forget the fractionals.
It's a tough time for fractionals, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Or consultants, if you want to go back to an old school way.
Portfolio. People with portfolios, careers.
Yeah.
That's even another one.
Older, yeah.
What I'm just trying to get back. So people are listening to this. They are having a tough year, but you've had an incredibly tough year, and this is just one part of that incredibly tough year.
Yeah, that's just one
I don't
engagement.
think we haven't got enough time to fill it out with everything. But,
Yep.
But how did you? I know you said you didn't deal with it, but what? You must have dealt with it somehow, because you're still here, Tom, and we thank you for that. But
I haven't unalived myself, which is a good thing.
Yeah, because people do get depressed and despondent, and that's horrible.
And it also takes a toll on your body, like physically, mentally, everything. Yeah.
But you have to remember, I think, that however bad it is now, or it was then, or I suppose when you're in the moment, you don't really think about it, but you have to realize that it can get better, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is an opportunity for it to get better.
Yeah, manifest destiny.
Those two crazy people, they were a problem, but they weren't your specific problem, if you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find yourself not detaching from that, or
No. I see. Some might say that I have something of a slight messiah complex, that I like to come in and fix problems. I like the change management, the crisis management. So I came into that knowing the problems up front and going in, bought into those problems. I just didn't know how bad those problems would get.
right?
So I went in there with the idea of it's like the crazy ex-girlfriend, right? You go in thinking you can change them. But ultimately,
Crazy ex-partner,
in this scenario, I wasn't successful.
Yeah. I think there's a stat somewhere. We should try and find that and stick it in the description, where people have said that they believed after they got married that things would be different. Like they believe they can change their...
the marriage would change it.
Yeah, the marriage will change it.
Or signing the contract for the employment would change it.
Yeah. But it was just too crazy.
Yeah, the problems between the founders wasn't recoverable.
No.
It had been eroded so bad over that year that it just wasn't recoverable.
That's not good.
Yeah.
So what did that mean in the end, though? So you got out.
Yeah.
Have you got any, kind of horror stories of what it was like getting out? Was there any part of that was difficult, or
no?
Sometimes extracting yourself
with the founder that I was talking with, as opposed to the other founder, I didn't even speak to very much. Only in public meetings.
Oh, was that because they didn't want to speak?
Because they just completely clowned up. They didn't want to talk to anyone. They kept themselves to themselves, and they basically.
Well, hopefully that's the founder that stayed on.
No, well, the one that didn't. Yeah, the one that didn't talk to anyone. Yeah, the one that didn't communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So the founder I was talking to, he just understood the situation. He understood that it was untenable, and we basically parted ways almost immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty,
so I survived pretty unscathed.
That's a pretty bad horror story to get started with. Have we got any better ones?
What do you mean, funny ones?
Well, yeah.
I'll pass that one over to you. I'm sure you've got half a dozen on hand.
I have got one. This was actually, I mean, I can't take all the credit, but back in the day, we worked. We worked as a technical partner for advertising and marketing agencies. So we did some crazy campaign work for them. And we picked up a project with, and actually there's so much water under the bridge now, I think I can just talk about this openly. We picked up a project through a company called, an agency called Lean Mean Fighting Machine, who are incredibly cool. And they used to do some amazing campaign work. And I've just realised how deep this one goes. So
legal implications.
Well, not now.
Okay.
No, this was a long time ago. So we'd never do anything like this now, if anyone's listening. But we did this. We did a lot of campaign work with Lean Mean Fighting Machine, and they were a great bunch of people, and we did some stupid campaign stuff. But one of the ones we did was for Dr. Pepper.
Mm-hmm.
And now, part of the whole brand of
What's the worst that could happen?
That's it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst that can happen? So at this time, there was a lot of, Facebook was quite reasonably new, but it was quite popular. Mm-hmm. And the team at Lean Mean Fight Machine came up with an idea to use Facebook, but in a way that would mean, they would try and get across though, like, what's the worst that can happen, mm-hmm. right? So one of the ideas that came through, and our tech director at the time, who probably wants to remain nameless, but amazing guy, he helped them, and we ended up coming up with this idea of posting to people's Facebooks.
Was this the time of the wall?
The wall?
Yeah, Facebook at the early on in its days had people have walls, and you could post on people's walls, like the idea of graffiti, like you post a message.
This was worse. This was logged in as that person using the API. Yes.
Oh dear.
Do you not remember? You remember this thing? You could give an app access, and it would then be allowed. You could give
so there was consent. I was worried that there was.
Well, there was consent. There was consent, but it gets worse. Oh dear. I'm thinking about this because I've now realised what I've got to tell you, and it's getting more real. So the Lean Mean Fight Machine team and our tech director at the time came up with this great idea to post stuff on people's walls, right? Because you could do it. So you as someone on Facebook, you'd see this ad, then you'd click a thing, and it'd say, we'd like to install this app, because you can install little apps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are talking about the old school of Facebook. Like the vampire game and
the old stuff, right?
Yeah.
And this app wants to have access to post on your wall. You'd click yes, because you're in with the chance. I can't remember what the prize was. We'll post some links, because this has actually been all documented online in various places. And so you give it you give it access to your Facebook to post things on your behalf as you, right? And then what we then did is we built a whole system behind that. When people did that, there was a back end that would basically go and post every now and again on your wall, and it would take a whole bunch of different content and post it on. And there was about 2,000-3,000 of these different content items that would be posted, but they'd be really, stupid stuff, and I can't even remember how stupid they were, but it was quite a few trivial bits. But it then escalated, so there'd be sort of, in this content list of 3,000 or whatever it was, there would be some sort of harmless kind of, I'm feeling a bit stupid today. Okay, well, that's not too bad if someone reads that on your... And then it got kind of progressively a little bit worse and stuff. Oh, I've just had a chat with my parents and I really hate them, or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember. And my creative skills aren't very good right now. But the most important bit was that inside all of this, there was a reference to a very, at the time, a very dodgy, let's say, film. Well, it's not really a film, but a video that was doing the rounds on the internet.
Oh, so some of the darker stuff on the internet and then toes.
Yeah.
Well, when are we talking? Are we talking like early 2000s?
No, mid 20, must have been 2012, 2013.
2012.
I don't know actually, but yeah.
Okay.
Like 10 years ago.
Was it
years ago.
Was it like an early viral video, or is it something a little bit more?
Well, I'm going to tell you what it is.
Okay.
But are you sitting down?
I am.
So the message said, I'm slightly paraphrasing because I can't remember exactly, but it said, I've just watched 2 girls and 1 cup, and now I feel nauseous.
The viral. Okay.
Now, we're not going to put a link to this, to that in the description. And
there are many parodies of it, though, so we could get the essence of it.
Parodies. We could put a parody in. That would be better, yeah. So, So at this time, there was a very, very dark sexual meme going around, which was 2 girls and 1 cup.
Yeah, yep.
And so Yeah, that was in from the copywriters.
Why were they affiliating themselves with that video though? That doesn't seem like a very good marketing push.
Well, they were. You know what creatives are like. Have you ever been in a creative meeting at an agency
and just scratched your head afterwards, going, "What were they thinking?"
Yeah, I mean, I recommend if you've never been in one, you should go to one because because just crazy stuff comes up, and this came up obviously in one of those crazy meetings. They were, just blue skying, like, let's go crazy.
But surely there's a tone of voice that they have to be thinking about the brand, wanting to associate themselves.
Wouldn't you? You'd think, but anyway, that's a different conversation. So, and they just thought, oh, what's the worst thing we could ever put up? And that I can imagine that's how the conversation went.
Okay, it sounds like the early stages of the cheeky social engagement
process.
Yeah,
because generally in creative meetings, someone comes up with a really amazing idea, and then what happens is it goes backwards and forwards between the client, and the client chops bits off of it until it's just dull.
Yep.
And so you end up with these commercials or ads or whatever, creative ideas that are just half baked, and everyone moans about it in the industry all the time.
Yep.
But Lean Mean Fighting Machine were known for pushing the boundaries and doing stuff that, was right on the edge.
Okay.
So I can imagine the creative meeting. They went, that would be pretty bad if someone had that on their Facebook feed. Anyway, so
how did it tie back to Dr. Pepper or anything like that?
Well, I think what's the worst that can happen if you post something bad on your feed.
I understand.
I mean, what is the worst that can happen?
Yeah,
it depends. And that's
allow this app to give consent to post on your Facebook. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah,
I see. I got it.
Yeah, and it's the content,
and then they go the worst.
and who's reading it that really is going to get you.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get onto that bit. So, creative meeting happens. They obviously come up with all this stuff, and then in big companies. So, Dr. Pepper is owned by, I can't remember, but someone big,
like Mars, Pepsi.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Anyway, one of those big ones. Yeah. They have to then send these content items back for review, right? And in all these things, it goes to legal, right? So you've now got a bunch of. This makes me laugh. You've now got a bunch of lawyers, corporate lawyers, who are reading through 3,000 odd messages that may be posted on someone's timeline in this competition because they've entered the competition and given the company access to post on their timeline. Now you have to kind of think that because I don't want to disparage corporate lawyers or anything like that, but I think I might do.
Yeah,
because we are in the
they're an island of the business that the river of product delivery has to flow around.
Yeah, yeah. So they sometimes don't get the context. I don't know whether this, stayed in the UK or went out to a US team or something. Anyway, they redlined it all as they normally do. Came back, lots of red lines. They took those bits out. A few more creative ideas went in, went back and forth, and they got down to a smaller set of the 3,000, 4,000, whatever it was. But they got down to a reasonable number of them, and they signed it off. They said, yeah, that's all good. So meanwhile, we're building the back end, right? The team are building the back end, and nobody knows about any of this. I've kind of, set this up, but so you have to imagine that we hadn't read all of the content pieces. Like, why would we? Because we're building the back end. We're not there to review them, the campaign goes live and people start to have stuff come up on their timeline, and inane stuff and all of that, and it builds and builds, and there's a real buzz actually, and you start to get a real buzz. I think Dr. Pepper started to get lots and lots of interest and traction, and then about 2 weeks in, I get a call from our tech director. He's like, Rich, we've got a problem on the Dr. Pepper campaign. It's like, oh, what's that? Has the server gone down? No, it's much worse than that.
Doing too many.
So he says, this someone had signed up, and the app had then posted this terrible meme on their timeline. It's like, oh no, that's really bad. He said it gets worse. I went, okay, what's worse than that? Well, they turn out to be a 12-year-old girl, and now Mum's net's blowing up.
Yep.
Oh, that's awkward. So we go into a bit of a panic mode, and then we're going through emails, we're going through the file system, we're trying to work out where the provenance of the data that we've put into the app has actually come from. Anyway, after about 8 hours of mild panic and going backwards and forwards through everything, it turns out that the version we'd uploaded was the version that we'd been given, that was the version that was signed off by corporate legal.
Yep.
So we're kind of in the clear, but we're not in the clear because
someone's on the hook.
someone's got to go to jail, as they like to say. So so it ends up in a complete and utter mess. So it blows up completely on Mum's net. Mum's net goes completely bonkers, and possibly rightly so, right? And this then means that Dr. Pepper gets spread everywhere about the fact that they've been posting to people's social timelines, and this terrible thing had been posted. And then I think, bless them, Lean Mean Fight Machine got called in. There was a whole pile of trouble. They had to then try and, mediate the situation with the client. At the end of the day, it was the flipping client that did this. It wasn't, Lean Mean Fight Machine suggested it, but the lawyers signed it off. I don't know. The balance. But yeah, there was a lot of problems backwards and forwards between them, and they ended up losing the client, obviously, because someone has to go to jail. But I think, strangely, Halloween about 5 or 6 years ago, one of the team from Lean Mean actually stood up and went through this whole story, and they shared it with a bunch of agency. It was an agency event, and it was very brave of them to do so, because it is an incredibly interesting story when you're dealing with content that has to be generated and it has to be signed off by someone who isn't then in your internal team, and then what controls have you got about that content, and should you really review it yourself, and all of that, like, throws all of those questions up. But the moral of the story is that Dr. Pepper got loads of extra exposure out of it. I can't remember what the numbers were, but their followers went through the roof. It was like a massive success, but obviously Lean Mean got fired.
And look at Dr. Pepper now, one of the most popular drinks up there with Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
No, not really.
Maybe because of
not
this.
Really. Yeah.
Maybe because of this.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's not a victimless thing. There was someone on the end of that who posted it who was, someone who was a minor at the time and all of that, and hopefully nothing bad's happened to them about that. But it no long lasting effects. That's pretty much is that horrible enough? Is that horrible enough?
It's pretty nasty. Yeah. Hopefully no one was harmed in the making of it.
I hope not. I hope there's no long-term effects on anyone.
And legend has it, it's still on our Facebook wall right now.
I don't actually know that the answer to that question. But there's a load. We'll put it in the description. There's a load of stuff online about the whole thing and debacle. But I think the thing for me, as someone who was in that business at that time, is that whole, and certainly for our TD Mac, there was a very stressful moment. Right? Did we take the content that hadn't been signed off, and had we uploaded that? Because if that had happened, we'd have been on the hook, and we'd have been calling our public.
You need plausible deniability.
Yeah.
Or at least a paper trail to
Honestly
move the responsibility somewhere else.
Yeah, and it's just those. It's the weird things. Those little tiny things that can have such a big impact and difference. The fact that we'd followed our process and we hadn't uploaded a non-signed off version meant that everyone was okay and we could carry on the business.
Mm-hmm.
But if that had been the other way round, like we would have been in a severe situation.
Yeah.
Panic attack.
Yeah. So that's on a big scale. That's a huge brand. I've got something on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
On a startup scale. So I worked in a startup many, many years ago where it was basically a bedsit. It was they thought it was very, I don't know what the word is. They thought it was cool that they were so hip because they were in this bedsit basically. And it was literally a one-room space. You had like a lounge, a kitchen, toilet, a little bedroom.
I'm imagining it now. Yeah, but I'm thinking it's got red curtains.
Didn't have any curtains. It even had a massive skylight in the ceiling. That's what they thought was most hip about it. And they had this glass bridge across the top as well that went out onto a patio area. Weird place. Would have been a fun apartment, but
a bedsit with a glass that goes out
bridge
to
that went over the went over the main living area. So you had to go up these little stairs.
What kind of bedsit is that?
It was crazy.
I'm from Dorset. We don't have stuff like that down there.
The funny side of this is the business itself isn't relevant, but the thing is that this place didn't have the right or the ability to be a business. And so whenever the landlord came around to inspect the place and make sure it's being used, we all had to like scurry about and move all the desks into a space where they couldn't find it, and bring the bed in from a lockup outside down the road. We had to carry it down the road, this bed, and build it back up into the space. And it was a crazy time. So we had to make sure that it was all set up as a bedsit again.
Yeah.
And then we all had to leave so that one of the founders could hang around and go, oh yeah, so this is, the kitchen's fine, as you can see, and the bed is back, where it should be. Everything's as you expect. And then the landlord disappears, and then we have to go in and get that bed and then carry it back down to the lockup down the road, and basically half a day gone just trying to make the place back to a bedsit. And that's just one story from that place. Another one is that one of the co-founders was a bit of a playboy, and he liked the idea of being a founder, and he used to use the business finances to go party up. He used to come back.
That still happens.
Yeah, and he used to come back regularly with these women he'd picked up from the night before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What, bring them onto the team?
No, just bring them into the space because he obviously wanted to carry on spending time with them.
Right, okay.
And we were there just coding away and just hearing these girls giggle in the distance, like in the background, just in the sofa area. It was the weirdest place I've ever worked.
That does sound pretty weird.
Yeah.
But how old were you at this point, if I dare I ask, Tom? Because you're only 25 now, so...
Yeah. I would have probably been mid to late 20s.
All right. So it was kind of... Is it kind of...
Talking about 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 to 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But it was bizarre. I've also worked in other places where have been converted garages and stuff like that. So I've worked in my, the real gutter of startup culture, which I like. I like the whole idea of getting things started.
The gutter of startup culture. Yeah. If anyone out there has got a position open in the gutter of startup culture.
No, not anymore.
You don't want to go.
I don't have the energy anymore to do that anymore. I'm moving much more strategic now than I am, the IC or the individual contributor.
What were you building anyway in that bed set, apart from a bed every now and again?
Fintech. It was a fintech startup.
Was it?
Yeah.
What was it finteching?
Hedge funds. I'm giving all the buzzwords.
All right. And how do you... Well, anyway. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, good. Did it work?
I don't know. They may be still going. I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
But the platform we built was great. Amongst all of that weirdness and odd experiences, it's still out there somewhere.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, that experience was definitely interesting when you're living in that kind of the culture of this space we're in isn't even an office.
That reminds me of one that so I this is something that got passed down to me, but someone who actually still work with Julian, our sort of consultant CTO. He, I don't think he'd mind me saying this, but he worked for this guy, and this guy was a bit. He was doing a startup, and I always remember the story that Julian tells that Julian came back to the office one day, and this guy was basically had the window open and was shouting, "Julian, don't come up here. The bailiffs are here."
God.
And then for some reason started throwing things out of the window to save them from the bailiffs.
So the assets weren't available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's strictly legal. Don't do that. But again, crazy startup culture.
Chucking laptops and monitors out the window.
Yeah. 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 Startup culture. That is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else from startup? The gutter of startups. I'm quite
from
quite keen to hear
from the trenches of the war zone that is startup. Yeah. I've got another one. I worked at a startup where the CTO was a friend of the CEO.
Oh yeah.
The CEO was a trader bro. He came from Wall Street. Not Wall Street. What's the UK equivalent?
The UK equivalent of Wall Street.
Yeah, like where all the trading happens. There's
the city.
Yeah, sure, that works.
Yeah.
So he's basically a former trader and obviously has a wealth of finances behind him to fund the startup.
Yeah.
He brought his friend on, the CTO, and the CTO had previously been a network specialist.
Yeah.
Working with very small businesses to set up their networks and their email clients and that kind of stuff. And he turned out to be not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
Right.
And so every time he ended up opening his mouth, he made himself sound even dumber than he did when his mouth was shut.
Right.
And the decisions he made were very uninformed. And so the team basically had to scurry around his decision to actually implement something coherent out of the nonsense that came out of his mouth. And it constantly was a fight of, okay, he said this weird stuff. We don't quite understand what he means. Let's do it this way. And I ended up being it was an early internal hire, and we had an external team as well working in Poland, and it just ended up being a game of interpretation, of trying to understand what the hell he'd said, the noise that had emitted from his mouth, and then trying to work out the business implications of that and how to strategically move around it without him looking like an idiot,
right?
Because he was a friend of the CEO, and we basically had to make it seem like he knew what he was doing. And it was just this constant to and fro of what words just came out of his mouth, and how do we implement that particular expectation, and how do could we just implement anything we want? And he'd be like, yeah, I came up with that idea. Ultimately, it ended up a lot of that happened.
Yeah,
where he said the thing, we then went ahead and done the thing that we thought as a team was the best thing to do.
Yeah.
And then saying, oh yeah, it was this guy's idea.
But I think that sometimes you have to. That's that management up, isn't it?
Exactly. You have to manage up. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you have to convince someone above that it was their idea, and then be okay with that. Yeah. Which sounds a bit weird, especially when you're starting out in your career.
Well, yeah, that's also aspects of toxic leadership, right? They always take the credit if it goes well, but always pass the blame and find someone to accuse when things go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn those toxic. Should we get some toxic leaders in on this?
Oh, I bet that'd be fun.
Yeah. We should put an ad out.
We should do like, Borat, where he interviews people, but he on purpose makes the interview go wrong.
Yes. We could do that too.
Yeah. Have some explosive interviews.
Yeah. We could do that too. We could definitely interview people here, I think. Yeah. I like this.
Yeah.
And I think the red, curtains would also add to that. Toxic leaders. Don't want them, do you?
Can't live without them, and something.
What else have we got written down today? Because I've lost track now. Because we've been chatting for a while. What other points were we going to cover? What were they? Oh yeah. Oh, all my other stories aren't really that exciting, Tom.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I've got a business startup story that I tried to start up when I was younger.
Go on.
In my early 20s. So in my early 20s, I tried to start up with a business partner at the time. And the business was going well-ish. We ended up getting nice clients. We had really big clients, and we kind of leveraged those clients. Expanded the business a little bit too fast. Got a nice studio that we leased, and then we leased loads of hardware. Mm-hmm. And then we employed a load of people. And then the early 2000s, bubble happened. Do you remember
Right.
this? Do you remember when the economy just went in the toilet overnight almost? And so that meant that the company, the client we had, the really lucrative one, which was a lot of conference banners and websites and all that kind of stuff. We had a lot of different things going on there. They pulled their funding and their ability to do anything more with us. And so therefore we went from a company mostly reliant on one client, that client pulled out. All of our revenue did not cover even close to the rest of our income and expenses.
Yeah.
And so we overnight, well, it wasn't overnight, it was pretty over a space of a week trying to scrabble to find other clients to fill the gap, ultimately not being able to. And then all of these employees not being able to pay their monthly, the payroll.
Which totally sucks.
Yeah. So yeah, the company went from doing well, high velocity, high growth, to nothing. And the company kind of folded within about 2 weeks.
You'd be surprised how often that happens.
Yeah.
You really would, especially in our worlds.
Well, it also happens in the VC space. Like the VC comes in, gives you a chunk of cash. You then expand rapidly because that's what they want. It's growth. See those numbers go up. See the graphs go up. The business pushes too hard. You either burn out all your employees or your market then dries up.
Yeah.
Company dies overnight.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those old accountants and stuff called it client concentration.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
We grew on the back of having this one steady client. The client no longer was around. We had a massive void, and therefore it all just kind of imploded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a horrible story.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a very, very poignant lesson to learn in your 20s.
Yeah.
Thinking you're riding high and you're on top of the world. You've got all this money flowing in. You're getting recurring income and a nice, MMRR, monthly recurring revenue.
Yeah.
Of high MMR, and then all of a sudden nothing. Well, no, it wasn't completely nothing, but it was definitely very small compared.
Yeah. But the thing is, you got to try, right? Because if you don't try and go out there and
as I say,
happen,
you learn
things
from
don't move forward.
You need to fail before you can succeed.
You definitely need to fail before you can succeed.
And you often see people posting on LinkedIn, failure, success. And it's like the 15th thing down the list. I don't know how real that is, but there are many more lessons to learn from failure than there is success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I worry that in the UK, we don't celebrate failure as much as we should.
No, it's
sounds a bit weird, doesn't it?
It's definitely seen as an embarrassment point than it is a learning inflection point.
Yeah. I mean, one of the first businesses that I did was we got funding. This is back in 1999. That's a long time ago, isn't it? Oh, I just realised that.
It's scary looking back at those time frames.
I was very young though.
Yeah, 25 years ago.
Yeah, super young.
Yeah,
super young. We got funding. So we were building a I'd like to say a social network, but that just dresses it up. I'm changing the past. We were just building a database of nightclubs.
It's funny because I was building a social network back in early 2000s too. I think everyone in tech, at least in that kind of era, the whole fervor around social networking and social networks, it was nuts, and everyone tried to get their hand in the game.
Yeah.
I came up with Facebook, and my idea was Twitter, and they got to it first, all that kind of idea.
I know, execution is everything, isn't it?
Dreams are cheap, but execution is hard.
Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, so we were building a database of clubs around the world. So you could go on there and you could find out what was happening in, London or Edinburgh in the clubs. And we also had a photo gallery. It was incredibly popular, but we just took that for granted. It was a bit weird. We could have done some more stuff, but hindsight's a beautiful thing, isn't it? But we got funding. We got 110,000 from an angel investor.
Nice.
And I remember when
it goes a long way back in them days.
We did go quite a long way. It lasted us a year.
Yeah.
I remember going up to London to get this, and it was myself and another guy. We went up there, and I remember he was a bit mad. As all angel investors must be, right? But he saw something in us, and his accountant finance guy at the time was basically saying, "Don't sign this." And we were there, sat there in the meeting when he's supposed to be signing, and then they basically said, "Well, we're not going to do it because we don't know enough about it. So you need to go out and write some stuff down and come back in when you've done it." So went out and I opened up Word and I wrote a 2-page document on our business plan in about an hour. Me and the other guy, we kind of pulled this thing together, and then we printed it out because we were in his offices. So we managed to get it printed, took it back into him, and then waited about half an hour for him to read it, and then he decided to sign it. And it was great. We were like, one of those moments you're like, oh, this is incredible. And I remember going back on the train thinking we were made. That was it. The future was.
That's it. Yep.
Was sorted.
It's in your hands.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we ended up. We bought a load of computers. We got a slightly bigger office. We hired a bunch of people to do data entry because at the time you couldn't get this data. Like it wasn't online. Clubs didn't have websites or anything like that. Facebook hadn't been invented.
I think Facebook was like the closed university thing at that point. Yeah.
Well, Facebook wasn't in the UK.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
You needed an American university email address to get access. Yeah.
I don't think we even knew about Facebook at the time. Like, literally didn't know about it. And so, we started doing all this club data, having all this data entry. And then the .com crash happened. Mm-hmm. So, as you remember...
As I have the scars to prove, yeah.
You've got the scars to prove. And everything dried up. No one was really interested in us anymore because we had sponsors on the site. And so everyone suddenly decided that the internet was dead and pulled out.
It was that bad, yeah. I remember people thinking that's it, the internet is over.
Our headline sponsor was paying us 15 grand every 6 months, I think, for the headline.
Yep.
Because that's what you used to do. You used to sell the banner at the
pixels,
top, right?
Yep.
And they pulled out, and we had to go and have a bit of a chat with them to try and get the money back in. Mm-hmm. I had to lay the data team off, which was horrible. And by the time things started turning around, then Facebook turned up, and before you knew where you were, you didn't really need this because there was a community platform already.
Yep. That reminds me of the real nightmare of the internet in then times was that pay by pixel advertising website. Do you remember that? Where it was just a 1,000 by 1,000 pixel grid.
The $1 million webpage.
Yeah. That's a nightmare if you think back at that.
It's still live.
It's still live, isn't it?
It's still live.
He still gets paid for it.
Yeah.
Although I think I don't know if there's any recurring revenue in that thing, but that's a nightmare right there.
I'm going to go there now.
Yeah.
The million, what was it called? The million?
I don't know. It's like you paid by the pixel and you just got a little grid of, it's a genius idea, but it was definitely a nightmare. And
web.
And it's definitely a
page.
It hurts the eyes to look at because it is a mess.
The $1 million homepage.
Yeah.
It's still going.
That's a nightmare. Look at that.
It's still going. Here it is.
Ugh,
zooming in.
Slice of internet, that is.
Okay, that's probably not appropriate.
Yeah, there was some of that on there too.
Yeah, casinos and porn sites, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still going. So how amazing is that? You can go and visit it.
Yeah.
We'll put a link in the description.
Yeah. When the internet was much more of a Wild West.
Yeah. But what a genius idea, I thought.
Totally.
Yeah. Didn't he go off and he did something else, didn't he? What did he do next? He did something else.
No idea. I don't know. I didn't follow him. I didn't follow his career much after that.
Next. I thought he'd be on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, right.
No?
Buddies with him. It's my idea.
Oh, no. Wikipedia wants me to pay it some money. Alex Chew. Yeah, he went off to do something else. He did something else. Didn't he start something? Pop Jam. He created a website called Do Nothing for 2 minutes. I don't know what that is.
I do nothing for much longer than 2 minutes.
Do you?
On occasion. Yeah.
Are you going to start on doing nothing for 3 minutes?
Yeah, right. Yeah, competitor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just never do anything.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right. What's our next horror story? Come on, Tom. You've got another one in there.
I've got loads, but
I've got one if you want.
I got.
It's not really it is a horror story.
Well,
only for the client.
Yeah, but I've got a horror story about engineers, just dealing with engineers who just end up being that bad apple that this spoils the whole barrel.
Yes, I know those people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know the ones.
I think we all do.
Just really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 10Xers who are islands of ideas and domain expertise, but then they are horrible to work with.
Yeah. Yeah.
I the whole concept of the 10x engineer who are standalone engineers who don't need to be part of the team. Just they are the worst.
Yeah, they keep everything in their head.
Yep.
They won't let anyone else have it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if anybody else tries to do anything, it's not good enough, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I know those.
The worst ones are the ones that become part of the leadership. Like I worked in a company where the CTO himself was this 10x idea guy, and every piece of code had to go through him. And if he didn't like the way it was coded, he had to change it and do it in his own ideals.
Wow.
And therefore, the code became this drifting nightmare of his own esoteric implementations. And the best practices didn't exist. There's no such thing as best practices. It was his practices, and therefore the team couldn't have ownership.
But he wrote those practices down and trained the team.
No, it's all.
Oh.
It's the whole the meme of Heisenberg, like I am the documentation. Yeah.
I'm living proof of documentation. Yeah.
Exactly. And it just he ended up leaving because of ultimately disparating ideals on the leadership process and where the business was going. So he left to do his own thing.
Yeah.
Then the engineering team is then left with a code base that they have no idea about, no way of interfacing with. There were some weird implementations of iframes, lack of state. It was nuts, and the only thing we could do was replace it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that's the best option.
Well, yeah, as a lot of people say that code, once it's implemented, is there to be changed because you come back to it eventually, and you will have to probably either come to maintain it, and maintenance usually means rewriting, and rewriting means replacing.
I remember that popular thing was any code that doesn't have unit tests is legacy.
And I hear the word technical.
It's been a while. I've been out of the coding fraternity for a while.
Yeah, I'm getting there rapidly. Technical debt for me is more about compromise than it is about decisions. When you come to implement a feature or implement a piece of code, there is always going to be a compromise had and a workaround needed. That is what tech debt is for me. It's not so much the code exists, therefore it's tech debt. It's more the compromise exists, therefore it's tech debt.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's that compromise that causes problems in the code base.
Well, we had an interesting one once that reminds me. So a very good example of this. We had so I was working for an e-commerce agency, probably the best e-commerce agency in the country at the time, if I'm honest. Okay. They were good. They were really, really good. I mean, they were great at selling. Let's just say that. When it came to actually the implementation, they didn't I mean, they were all about sales. Didn't really understand how to run a dev team.
I hear that all the time. So many times companies are sales and customer success focused.
Yeah.
They don't think about the engine room, which is the engineering team.
Yeah, and one of my bugbears is cultures, business cultures, because I very much believe that, you know, an engineering team has a culture inside a bigger business, but they need to keep that culture.
The boys in the basement.
Yeah. Sorry. They don't need to keep all of the culture because they need to work with the rest of the teams. It can't be a complete island.
No.
But, you know,
they need to be integrated subculture.
Yeah. And then you've got, especially in agency land, I've done a lot of work in agency. You've got the creative team. The creative team love running around and like having crazy ideas and interrupting each other and just chatting and like drawing things. Whereas the engineering team are just like, please leave me alone so I can actually do something.
Yeah.
So you know, different kinds of ways of working and that. Anyway, we're getting off the point. So this agency, e-commerce agency in the UK, they were brilliant. They used to do Rigby and Peller. They used to do English Cricket Board. They used to do Crocs.
You're saying they used to do? So.
Oh yeah, they went bust.
There we go.
Yeah, they went bust. So this was a long time ago, before they went bust, by quite some time. And so I'd worked there for a little bit, and one of the clients that they had was a very, very big, popular. So shall I just say it? Shall I just say it? I mean, I won't get into trouble because they've gone bust.
Yeah.
It was the ECB, but don't tell anyone. The English Cricket Board.
I gotcha.
By the way, I love cricket, so if there's any free tickets, that'd be good. But so this is about 15 years ago, right? So all the lawyers, please don't write to me. And what happened was we were launching a new e-commerce platform, and
another one.
Yeah,
as in the
they had their
platform-
own proprietary e-commerce platform.
Of course they did in them days.
Yeah, of course you did.
I've worked with the consultancy companies who had their own CMS as well, and they're always nutty and always
I've got
problematic.
A story about someone who's got their own CMS. I've still come across companies that have their own CMS.
Yeah, I would have said previously just use WordPress, but maybe not these days. Maybe not with the current controversy.
Yeah, well, we could get onto that. But anyway, so it's the English Cricket Board. So we're doing their website and needed to re-platform onto the next latest version of the in-house e-commerce platform, basically. So this had all been built. So it was all built in classic ASP originally, and they were moving on to C#.
Oh God, they're using choice programming.
No, they were moving on to VB.
VB.net.
VB.net.
Oh, those days.
Because the dev team were all VB.
When Microsoft's trying to ruin our lives one language at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. We could talk about languages, but anyway. And part of that, the new platform obviously had the checkout process in it. And then there was integration into, the payment provider, all the usual stuff. And because it was a new platform, they wanted to go to a different payment provider. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. But anyway, different payment provider, different API. I don't even call it an API at the time. But there was a different integration. And I remember having a meeting with the team and talking about the fact that, the checkout and paying was very, very important and we should be testing it. Right, and maybe we should have these newfangled unit tests.
Yeah, it's the biggest funnel drop off in e-commerce.
Yeah,
checkout.
There's a better funnel. You wait until you hear the story. And I remember having a conversation saying maybe we should use these newfangled unit tests and stuff like that. And they were, it's an interesting idea. Anyway, this project wound on, and we launched it, right, and everything ran okay for a day or two.
And then someone tried to check out once.
And then we started to get reports that the checkout wasn't, like the payment wasn't working, but payments weren't going through. But then someone said, oh no, some payments are going through. Okay, that's great. And then we got someone from the ECB, I would like tickets, came to us and said, we've had a payment go through, but this chap has been charged £5,000, right, for a hat or something. It was like a hat. We went, that's weird. Anyway, so then panic, right? Software engineering panic. So we all sit around and we're all trying to go through and trying to work out what the hell's going on. And then it transpires that in the integration switchover and all of this chaos, it was a team effort. We let ourselves down. I'm gonna say I was part of the problem. We managed to stick an extra couple of zeros on the amount when you pass it through to the card. And that was the problem. So instead of charging 50 quid for the hat, we charging $5,000.
It's because someone didn't put the decimal point in the right place.
Well, when you pass it, you don't pass it with a decimal point.
I see.
You have the two trailing zeros, right? So you have to pass an integer. Anyway, we're getting technical now. But so that's that. And that's what we'd done. We'd assumed that we needed to add them, which was correct, possibly. But then the basket had them in already. So then we ended up adding them on. So then, we ended up with £5,000 going through. And this happened to quite a few people. So that was an awkward moment. Yeah, what a screw up that was. That wasn't good.
I've done something that impacted checkout process before. I worked at a hospitality company, a bit like Airbnb.
Oh yeah,
but UK specific and Europe specific. And I did something to the checkout flow, which I then deployed on a Friday.
What?
Thinking everything.
Tom, you've deployed on a Friday.
Thinking everything was fine. The QA has tested it and it's great. Hits production. No one then tests it whilst in production. For the entire weekend, the checkout flow had broken. And they'd lost millions in the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I came back and was like,
who did this?
Yeah. And so yeah, I've done something
I
similar.
just fix it now.
Deploy on a Friday. Don't test it thoroughly. Don't wait to see if things are broken. Go
All those
away for the weekend.
lessons.
Oh, this was early on in my days. This
Yeah.
was like one of the early times.
Yeah.
The early times.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
all these lessons, and you just know now, you just never deploy on a Friday.
No, never. Absolutely never. No, definitely not 5 o'clock on a Friday.
No. But apparently, we don't have to worry about deploying anymore because I've just seen that video from Anthropic where apparently Claude now just takes over your computer and just.
This is the action models that they're bringing out now.
Have you seen this? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It takes over your computer.
The dystopian nightmare that will be the future
Yeah.
of AI taking over everything you do on a computer.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I've got a plan for it. It's going to start posting on your feed, Tom. That's the thing.
My feed. Yeah. That's it. Generate all my content calendar for the next 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll start posting on LinkedIn for you.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what it might post? You know?
It's all coming round.
Yeah. It's coming back around.
Yep.
So, that's where we were, 15 years ago. We were doing stupid campaigns to post on people's feeds. And now, look at it. We can actually start using other people's machines to write code, which may or may not post on their LinkedIn feed at the same time.
It's interesting that you had, what's it called? Rabbit, the Rabbit R1 come out with this LAM that they were talking about.
Yeah.
Which doesn't exist. It's just Playwright doing stuff in the background, clicking around websites. And now you've got Anthropic doing something very similar, but who knows?
Where will it end? Probably in court.
It's going to end with Skynet, and we're going to be squashed by robots being powered by Anthropic's AI.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I think that's going to happen. But weirdly, I'm not resisting.
No, yeah, please do
I'm
my
not
job
in
for
the
me.
street
Yeah,
shouting about it.
no.
I'm actually kind of enjoying the ride.
It's funny, I brought this up the other day when I was talking with my wife about the whole future of tech and how things are happening. And I've always been attracted to the Star Trek way of the future,
Yeah.
where there was an inflection point.
The Star Trek way of the future.
Yeah, so there was in the history of Star Trek, there was an inflection point in the early 2100, like the early 22nd century, where technology got to a point where no one needed to work anymore and the economy broke, basically. The economy collapsed because no one needed to work anymore because everything was handled for them. And so the human race had to work out, what does life mean without having to earn money, without having to, work for a living? What was the point and what was the purpose of humanity? And it basically came to a point where they were just explorers, and they were. It was an intelligence economy then at that point, as opposed to a currency-driven economy, because they had replicators. They had everything was kind of handled. I think I'm kind of conflating some ideas here, but the general point I'm trying to make is that there's a point in the future where money is no longer necessary. Everything can be created for you on a whim, on a fly, like a 3D printer, and therefore there is a point where you have to consider what is the purpose once you no longer have to work for a living and no longer need to survive based on your own means. Everything is just available. Well, just as I said, they explore. They explore and they just learn. And
Was that in the original Star Trek from the?
I think it was Next Generation was kind of like
Is that where they
the point where that kind of idea
that
came
drops in?
Yeah.
Because of course Star Trek's in the future. Star Wars
24th century, I believe. Again, details probably aren't accurate, and maybe I'm upsetting some people in the audience there, but
and Star Wars obviously was a historical thing.
Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. That happened.
Yeah, because that happened
a long time
in
the galaxy.
far away. Yeah.
But yeah,
as we know by the tablets that landed on the mountain tops many years ago.
Yes, that's what happened.
And
that was
what was his name? Lucas. What was his? George Lucas? He found those tablets.
He did, yeah.
They need to transcribe
to transcribe
doctrine.
Them. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened, and that's why I'm a Jedi. So you're a Trekkie. So
I wouldn't say I'm either. I'm definitely not a Star Warser, whatever the terminology is there for that.
A Star Warser.
What's the terminology for someone who's into Star Wars? Is there not? You're a Trekkie if you like Star Trek. You're not a Warser over in the Star Wars camp.
No, you're just a Jedi.
Or everyone's a Jedi, even if you are.
I don't really know what I'm talking about now, but I'll pretend I do. Yes,
but I lean towards the ideals of Star Trek more than I do Star Wars, because Star Wars is just it's Western in space.
Star Wars is a Western in space. I feel like you might have offended someone there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, where did that leave us? Suddenly,
the point I was trying to make.
We don't have to work anymore.
Yeah, AI takes over the world. We no longer have to work for a living. That's where we got.
How fast is that going to happen, Tom?
10 years.
10 years?
Mm-hmm.
And we won't have to work anymore?
No, I don't think...
Do you think we're still going to have to do podcasts?
I honestly think... Well, have you not heard that Google have got that new thing, that notebook LLM thing they've got?
I know, I've used it.
Yeah, you pipe in your own documentation and you click a button and poof, you've got a male-female co-host podcast based out of your own content.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah,
It sounds great.
It does, but they don't and ah.
No.
It drives me nuts.
You need some of those place words.
Yeah, I think you do. I think you need a little bit of humanness. Humanness. That's a new word I've made up.
Yeah, so my point is that I don't think AI is going to take over. I think AI is going to be a tool. It's going to be assistive, but I don't think it's going to be replacing anything.
I went to the Bloomberg Summit yesterday.
I heard.
Yeah. It was all AI. It was AI all
I bet your eyes were just constantly glazed.
I was slightly concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's the new trend for business that they have to get on that bandwagon to be relevant. Ultimately, it's going to be not flash in the pan, but I think we need to adjust to the new reality of AI being assistive.
Yeah.
And it will be. And there is a whole push towards agents as well, AI agents and AI representatives and people having...
Dare I say one of our businesses is building one of those? So, yeah.
Because I've heard a lot of stuff about celebrities being virtualized so that you can like chat to...
David Beckham.
Billie Eilish was the name that came to my head, where you could just chat to her and she'll be able to voice, because it'll be voice synthesis as well. And you'll just be there chatting to her like she's your friend.
Write a song about...
Collaboratively write something with her.
Yeah, about this time I lived in a bedsit. We had a glass walkway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
could be a really good song.
Yeah, life's like a glass walkway.
Yeah.
You just got to walk it.
Yeah, I like that. Sung by Billie Eilish.
Yeah. That's it. We've got number one hit. Yeah, I just think everyone needs to just kind of readjust to the new norms of AI is good, it's great, it helps with a lot of things, but it's not what everyone thinks it is. That then takes me quite nicely to the lunatic that is Elon Musk and all the latest Tesla announcements and the obvious fake demos of the robots that he says is going to be ready in about 3 years and cost 30 grand.
But he always says things are going to be ready.
Oh yeah, he's completely level-headed and says very real things that always happen.
I like the way that he gets away with it, though. He must be the only... CEO in the world who can talk about stuff, then not deliver it, and everyone's very...
Well, no, he does deliver it, but then it breaks and it doesn't, and it kills people, and it cuts people's fingers off, and it's all good. It's just that's what it's meant to do.
I've got a Tesla.
Have you?
Yeah, my finger's going to be...
I feel really itchy when I'm driving around. I feel scared around Teslas because of the whole. All of a sudden, it might think it's a cruise missile and just disappear down the road and take me with it. Every time I see one on the road, I'm like, oh, is it now?
You've got an irrational fear of Teslas.
I think I do.
Wow.
It's the autopilot. It's the autopilot who just all of a sudden thinks it's a cruise missile and just wants to just go full acceleration and take out many people along the way.
Have you been in one of these when this has happened? How did you get this?
No, but I've seen the news. Therefore, it's real.
I've seen
the sensationalism.
It's on my feed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've seen people talking about it, so therefore it must be real.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I don't. No, I'm not that serious about it, and I don't consider Teslas in any way. There was a brief period where I wanted one, but then
a brief period, like then the 15 seconds.
Yeah, very much. It was probably about 6 months when they first came out, and then I started paying attention more to Elon Musk, and then realised that's not a ship I want to fill it myself to.
No. What do you drive now?
I have a Ford.
Okay.
EcoSport. I love it. We call it Donkey because you can strap on all kinds of loads on it and it can just keep on kicking. It's great. It's just a stubborn mule.
You've gone down the Star Trek future.
It's a tiny little car.
Is it?
Yeah, just enough to get around A to B. It's not like your silly,
like the Enterprise.
Your massive SUVs, not your big. I see people driving around like massive Mercedes and the big Ford pickups and all that. The Raptors.
I know. The one thing I hate about my Tesla is it's too big.
What have you got? A Model X?
I've got 3.
That's
still too big.
I don't know.
I don't like big cars.
Is the X? The X is the one with the gull wings, isn't it?
Yeah.
So 3 is just a big saloon, is it?
Yeah, it's just a sedan. I think they call it.
A sedan.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a sedan and a saloon?
Oh, don't ask me that question. I don't know.
Bigger boot.
Yeah. Oh no, that's it. The boot doesn't open with the back window.
Yeah, gotcha. So it's a little bum.
Yeah. Or a coupe.
Let's stop there.
I can't remember. Anyway, I used to be really into cars. Can't remember.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So it's just too big.
As in to park?
It's just too big. It's just too big. I like small cars.
Yeah. So that's why we stick with the because it's like a go-kart.
I had an i3 for a bit. I loved it.
Okay. i3. Is that the one with the funky grille and like the blue inset?
Yeah, and the suicide doors at the back.
Okay.
You know the ones that open the other way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't the suicide the ones that go up?
No, those gull wings.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're backwards doors.
Yeah.
I bet that was super useful.
So if people get out and they haven't paid you, you just drive forward and knock them over.
The doors open like that? When you open up the front door and the back door, they both
I
open?
hope no one's listening to this just in audio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Just like that. But yeah, they open front. They don't open front ways. They open back ways. What are we talking about? They open the other way to normal doors.
Yeah. Gotcha.
On a car.
Like a Bentley.
Yes. Or
So you can be chauffeured.
a black cab.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably the more traditional way of being.
Yeah.
I don't often think many people are going around getting chauffeured over the place unless you take cabs.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the chauffeur thing.
Experience.
Is it?
Totally. 100%.
Okay, cool. Right. So I haven't got any more terrible horror stories, Tom, for you. I think I've depleted myself a little bit.
Well, we need more people to submit some ideas.
Is that what we need to do? We
Yeah.
need to ask people to submit ideas.
Yep.
All right. And then what are we going to do?
They can be shared anonymously.
I thought we were going to have a toxic leader come in as well.
Yeah. Just
So we need to advertise for one of those.
But we need to make sure that they don't know they're coming on as a toxic leader. They're coming on as a thought leader.
But wouldn't it be better if we had someone who came in who identified as a toxic leader?
They self-identify as a toxic.
Yeah. So they came in and said, well, I'm a toxic leader.
Yeah, and here's why.
Yeah.
There was a very famous American businessman who is vocal about the fact he doesn't give a fuck about his employees. That you come on board because you are here to do a job.
The weirdest thing is that some people want that.
Yeah. He was spouting how he was proud that some of his execs come and work even when their wives are having given birth. And,
Yeah.
And he was just like, I don't give a fuck about your family. I don't give.
You need to be on a conference call during the delivery because that's what's happening.
Well, no, you're not even there for the birth. You're at work.
Okay.
You're talking about you have to conference with your wife while she's FaceTiming your wife while she's giving birth.
Yeah, why not?
I don't think he'd give you that.
That's
chance.
more productive.
I'm pretty sure, and he's well known for this opinion about his employees.
Yeah. But some people want that.
Yep.
So in their heads, is the leader toxic? Oh.
Yeah, they are. I think toxic isn't a point of view. Toxic is just a culture.
Oh, we could debate that. Yeah. Because I think, well, let's get a toxic leader on, or maybe two, and see how it goes.
Yeah.
We can measure the level
or
of toxicity.
for equal diversity, we could have someone who identifies as an equal diversity leader, someone who's open for all of this new trends and all these new ideals, and then someone who is completely against it.
Yeah, maybe we should just watch that from outside in the observation room.
Okay, and then we can.
Well, I'm feeling scared at this point.
You don't want to be in that room.
I don't know whether I do. No, I mean I don't. I don't like conflict that much. So
oh man, I thrive on conflict.
Do you?
There's something about it.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a severe flight or flight mechanism, and the adrenaline just goes whoop, and my hackles go up, and I'm like, let's go.
Let's go, not run.
No, I want to be there. I want to be there.
Right.
I want to be there in the soup trying to make things happen.
So the flight or fight thing is more like fight.
There's no flight. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, has that ever been physical for you, Tom?
No, of course not. Not in the business sense, no.
Yeah,
In the personal sense,
Tom
maybe.
flies over the desk and attacks me. Okay. Well, yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, so that's what we're going to do, right? So we're going to get some ideas off of our wonderful audience.
Mm-hmm. Some stories.
We don't know who our audience is yet, but they will find us.
Yeah. As the title of the podcast states, it's the retrospective of it all.
Yeah. What's it called? Retrospectively, aren't we? This is the Retrospectively podcast.
That's the one.
Yeah. And then we're going to get some toxic leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we can find some.
And it doesn't have to be toxic. We can have people who just have lessons learned and stories to tell.
Well, this has been great fun. Why don't we do it again?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.